Welcome, everyone. My name is Luke McKim, that is. And I'm really grateful and honored to be here. Hey, Joe. There we go. Full screen. Hey, Shayla. Hey, Jackie. Hey, Janet. Hey, Anne. This is awesome. Hey, Susan. Oh, Midori. Hello. Paige. Oh, this is so nice. Yeah, I'm really grateful that this happened. For a minute, it was looking like it might not. So here we are. That's wonderful. I'd like to start, even though some of our time has been used, I'd like to just use another few minutes just for us to drop in here together to access a space whereby I can express, feeling connected to all of you, and you can receive. So I'd like to invite you to find a comfortable seat. Maybe you're sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Maybe you're sitting cross-legged on a cushion or on the ground. You can allow the eyes to close if you like, and just come into connection with the breath here just for a minute. Breathing into the belly. Inhaling, allowing the belly to expand out, the ribs to expand to the sides, the chest and collarbones to rise. And exhaling, emptying the lungs from the top all the way down. Empty the top of the lungs, the mid lungs, and then draw the belly in, squeeze all of the air out. Inhale, fill the belly first, the ribs, the chest, and exhale, empty from the top down. Keep going. Breathing deeply, filling the lungs from the bottom up, emptying from the top down. On the inhale, notice that you're inhaling. On the exhale, notice that you're exhaling. Arriving here fully. Feeling into the energy of this group. This supportive, nurturing environment. Take one more deep inhale. Full exhale. And relax. If you like, you can drop the chin to the chest and flutter open the eyes. And we'll transition into this sharing from me to you. Welcome. Again, my name is Luke McKim. I'm a recovery coach with Recovery 2.0. And I've had quite a journey in this life. I'm here to tell you a little bit about it. I see it all as being, none of it was bad. It might have felt bad at the time, but where I am is what's important. This is the only thing that's real, this present moment. And everything that happened to me was necessary for me to arrive here. In this way, none of it was wrong or bad. It's just simply my journey. when I was, I think 17, I started smoking weed, and I had a lot of really fun adventures with my friends. You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Good. Okay. I had a lot of fun adventures. There was a playfulness, there was a magic to it. And it instilled a bit of nostalgia around what that substance was to me. It created this idea of childlike play and of even the alleviation of kind of societal or peer pressures that I'd felt in high school. I felt really comfortable around my close group of friends. I felt like I was really myself around them, but I didn't let other people see myself. I kind of put up a wall or a face or a persona, a cool, collected persona that didn't say much around many people. And that was really uncomfortable. That was an uncomfortable way of living. And something about smoking weed, it took that away. It just let me be in life. But it also stole a lot of things from me. My ability to really connect, my memory in a big way, my ambition. A lot of my core drivers were slowly eroded. And I smoked weed for a long time, for maybe 10 years. And eventually it became far less about the playful companionship that it had begun as, and it was more of just an isolated experience whereby I became attached to the way that I could shift my feeling, my inner feeling, and all of my circumstances, all of my things that I was up to became dependent upon this substance, and they felt incomplete without it. I was using it as the foundation for all of my experiences. And so my baseline without it felt somehow insufficient or lacking. And I recognized that something needed to change. I felt like I wasn't really living my life, like I was just, it was passing me. It was some sort of a facade or a half-life. And I could feel that really palpably, and it was painful. But I didn't feel like I could get out of it. It felt like it was just always going to be that way. And there was a pessimism around that, and there was a depression. And I tried to stop a number of times on my own. I finally became honest with the people in my life, my parents, about what was happening. And I tried to shift it on my own. But there was a forgetfulness that took place. I would escape from it for a time. And then familiar circumstances would occur. My friends would come home for holiday and whatever. And it was, I forgot how bad it was. I forgot how narrow my experience became if that substance became introduced. And so I fell back in and out of it a number of times. And it wasn't until I was 28 that I had the opportunity to go to Costa Rica with Tommy, just through some rather serendipitous circumstances. My sister was supposed to go, and she was unable to go at the time. And the opportunity was presented to me. Would I like to go? Maybe about a week and a half before it began. And I felt like I would. I would like to go. I didn't really know what it was. I spoke to Tommy on the phone really briefly. And so I went. And before I went, I started reading Tommy's book in the week before I went. And the words in that book really spoke to me. They took what I had felt to be an incredibly isolated experience, something that was unrelatable to others, that was just this intensely personal and painful situation. And I felt that experience echoed in what Tommy was sharing, just in the way that he interacted with marijuana. And it made me curious. It created an openness in me to actually be a part of the experience that was about to happen in Costa Rica, to not close myself off from it, to feel like maybe there's, not even just maybe, I felt like there was something here for me in a way that I couldn't quite verbalize. But I went to Costa Rica and started practicing Kundalini yoga for the first time ever. And after practicing for about 3 days, we did a Kriya with Kia Miller, Tommy's wife. Very active Kriya, a lot of navel stuff, a lot of movement of the whole body. And then we lay down in Savasana. And for the first time in many years, I didn't have the negative self-talk looping in my head. My experience had shifted over the years into this kind of, into a situation where I was very hard on myself. And the voice within my head was not kind to me. And this was a self-perpetuating loop of just negative self-talk. But something about the way that I was in Shavasana that day, it just wasn't there. It was finally quiet. I'd read this fantasy novel recently where this person had been talking about the stillness and the void, this inner state of calm that you could achieve to take action when really important action was needed. You should access the stillness and the void first. And that felt like what this was. It was just really still. And interestingly, from that place, right when we came out of Shavasana, we were given a journaling exercise. And the exercise was, who am I? And this had been the question that I hadn't really formulated properly in my own mind, but I knew that it was the question I most wanted to know. Who am I really? Underneath all of this nonsense that I've built up, underneath all of these years of living in a way that didn't feel correct, that didn't really feel like me, who am I? And so I took my book and I put the pencil to paper and the words just started coming out. I didn't feel like I was the one writing them. They just started flowing onto the page. And I wrote, I'm kind, I'm patient, I care about the people in my life. I'm a friend and a brother and a son. I wish the best for others, and I don't begrudge them their faults. And a lot of this was just really, I mean, some of it seems simple and obvious, but it was such an outpouring in that moment, in that simplistic way, of who I really felt myself to be, that it unlocked something right away. And I cried a lot. The tears just kept coming, but I shared it with the whole group and I got up in front and I let people in to that space. I wasn't isolating anymore. And that created a heart resonance between me and many of the people there, whereby they really saw me and they liked what they saw because it wasn't a person. It was just my heart. It was just me underneath it all. And after that experience, I just went and stood in the sun and just looked out into the jungle and the water. And I literally felt like I was floating. I actually felt like my feet weren't touching the earth anymore. And I stayed that way for probably an hour to maybe 2 hours. And it was just this incredibly liberating feeling whereby I wasn't carrying the burdens of all the things that I'd done that felt wrong anymore. I was just here. I was just me. And that felt really good. It still does. It's still something I can come back to now whenever I want. And I learned many more things in the days to come, in the years to come. I eventually became a Kundalini yoga teacher about a year later because I fell in love with the practice. This was a set of tools that I could use to shift the way that I felt, which is really what I wanted from marijuana, but it didn't really give it to me. I mean, it gave me a shift, but it didn't give me a shift to the real me. It was just a shift to something else. I think that's what so many of the different mind-altering substances can do, is they shift the way that we are, but they don't necessarily shift us into authenticity. And so here was a practice that could do just that for me. It required that I paid for it upfront, that I put in the work right away, as opposed to pay for it later. And this was a payment scheme that I felt much more comfortable with than get high now, pay for it later. It's put in the energy now, put in the effort now, and then receive in abundance. I still encountered some of that forgetfulness again, and I had periods whereby I revisited my old behavior. And there's one of them I want to tell you about because it's a really sacred experience to me. When I would spend time with some of my old acquaintances, friends really, like it wasn't all about the substance, these friendships, some of them. There was real love there. So I tried to keep one of those friendships in particular going, and this person was still smoking and drinking. And it activated a lot of old things for me just to be around that, to be in that familiar space. Even if I wasn't partaking of any of the substances, there was a physiological response that took place within my body whereby I felt impaired. Impaired is the better word than high. And eventually I had to pull away from that friendship entirely, even though it was a really valuable one to me. And I've since expressed to that person why that happened. And they're actually doing really well now too. They've actually stopped smoking as well. So I'm really happy about that. But to get back to what I was saying, this feeling of impairment shifted me for maybe even a week afterwards. And I was in some of those old patterns of craving that weren't present otherwise. And I had this experience whereby I had acquired some marijuana and I rolled it up and I was going to go to the woods and smoke. But I felt like even everything leading up to that and within the experience itself, it didn't feel like it was me doing it. I felt like my body was just moving on its own. And I was going through this experience and I didn't want to be doing it, but I was being pulled by this old conditioning, these old patterns, and it was just playing out physically through my body. And I got to the place in the woods among this bed of nettles. It was in the fall. And I thought to myself, I know how to shift my state. I know how to do that. I have these tools. If I could just sit down and I could just do 3 minutes of breath of fire, of ego eradicator, I know that I would feel differently. And I really didn't want to. I was like, I just want to get high. But I knew that if I could just get myself to do it, something would shift. So I did. I sat down. I did the breath of fire, 3 minutes. And something shifted. I wasn't in it anymore. I wasn't being pulled. The craving had dissolved. That cycle had been broken. And I took the joint and I ripped it up and I threw it into the woods. And I yelled, "You have no power over me anymore. I am free." And it was this declaration of breaking this old habit. And it was a permanent shift in the way that I am. And that behavior didn't creep in anymore. And part of that personalization, I'm now just recognizing as I'm saying this, was so necessary. I had these tools, I had these practices that could bring forth the real me, but the real me had to be involved in the breaking of that cycle in a really intimate way, whereby I wasn't using something anyone else had given me. I was just an experience that was all my own. And that really made sense. Yeah. And now I really love the way that I am. I've recognized the value of having those practices in the morning to bring me into my own authenticity, and the value of the evening practice, something I neglected for a long time, as being something that which could get rid of the buildup during the day, of the imprinting, of the conditioning, and could shake it off, could let it go so that I don't carry it forward. There were many years, probably 3 years, where almost every day I did this 15-minute breath practice right before bed. And it just became this super lovely thing that I looked forward to so much. And it wasn't work. Almost all of my meditative practice just isn't work anymore. It's just joyful. I want to be doing it. And so I do. And now I get to help other people in the same way. I get to work with people who see something in me that resonates with them. They can see that I express something about where they would like to be, how they would like to carry it forward. And I can help those people, not necessarily through the tools and everything I've learned, but just through the way that I am. That this is the most powerful gift I have to give anyone, is just to send forth pure love and light from my heart and represent a possibility for a way of being. Thank you for listening. I'll answer some questions if anyone has questions they would like to ask. Is my evening breath practice breath of fire? No, my evening breath practice is called Shabad Kriya. I'll type it in. It is I can teach it to you. It's the most powerful thing I have to gift. Or maybe not. It's the most powerful tool I have to gift. It's a 4-part inhale through the nose. Mentally vibrating sa, ta, na, ma on the inhale. And then you hold the breath for 16 counts, 4 satanamas. Sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma. And then you exhale through the nose in 2 pieces, getting all of the air out in 2 pieces. And for that part, you're mentally vibrating Wahe Guru. So you inhale 4 parts, sa, ta, na, ma, then hold the breath for sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, then exhale, Wahe Guru. And that's the whole thing. You just go like that for 15 minutes. And something really special takes place around the 14-minute mark. For me, it's this activation of visual imagery. My imagination comes online and I'm able to direct my imagination really freely. It's called Shabad Kriya. I put it in the chat a minute ago. SHABD. Luis is asking, can I say the mantra aloud? Oh no, you don't say the mantra aloud. It's just silent. You're just mentally vibrating the mantra for the whole thing. I'm just saying it aloud to give you a sense for the timing. Luis asks, how important has sound and mantra been to your recovery? Integral. Absolutely integral. And something I wouldn't have suspected beforehand. But the practice of chanting has really opened up my voice and allowed me to speak in a way where I feel like it's actually me talking. And it's not some sort of front that I'm putting up. It's this actual vibration within myself. I feel like the way that I'm able to speak when I'm really me is the same vibration as mantra, real mantra. And it's because I was able to, or because I have chanted so much and used those sacred sounds. Shell asks, 4 breaths in, then hold for 4 satanamas, 2 exhales. Yep, that's right. 4 breath in, hold 4 satanama, 2 exhale Waheguru. And you're doing a full breath on the way in 4 pieces, full breath on the way out in 2 pieces. We did not receive the spelling of the Kriya. Okay, let's try this again. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's such a good evening practice. So good. Do I always do breath of fire for cravings? How long till they went in weeks? This has been my main tool that I've used when craving was really intense, was ego eradicator. Fingers curled to the pads, thumbs stick out, arms straight, breath of fire, third eye point, just 3 minutes. That's the practice that I credit as having saved my life. So that's the one that I've used, yeah. And in weeks, that wasn't the time frame. It was instant. It was gone in 3 minutes. Didn't come back. Yeah. And if it did arise later, I would do it again. But that wasn't my experience. It was just gone. Do I think that it works on negative thinking? Yes. Yes, I do. I would encourage you to try it out in your own experience. When you're dealing with some sort of strong emotion, maybe it's negative thinking, maybe it's craving, and you don't like the way that you feel, do 3 minutes of ego eradicator. Powerful breath of fire. Focus to the third eye point. See what happens. How long do you hold the breath out for Shabad Kriya? There is no hold on the exhale. 0 seconds. And with this, I will bid you all farewell. Thank you so much for coming today. From my heart to yours, Sat Nam.